Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Trying to keep to my New Year's resolutions.
And what are your New Year's resolutions?
Well, dry January to start.
Uh huh.
I want to lose two pounds a month this year, so that
Okay.
might mean a whole dry year and no desserts.
Uh oh.
And then I want to keep the same amount of meters on the rowing machine, and
Uh huh.
I can do that. That's enough, I think.
Yeah, that. I think it's pretty good. Rand, how you doing?
Doing well.
Got any New Year's resolutions?
No, I don't. I don't really do that.
You're a smart man. Then you don't. Then you don't have to break your resolutions. Susan, Susan is not feeling well today, so she's not going to join us today. So you guys have probably not looked at the website, but I've revised it a little bit so that we've got a beginning Tai Chi class and an advanced Tai Chi class. Each of them goes for 2 years. Each of them goes through the 24 form 4 times. And so in the beginning Tai Chi class, it's the outer choreography, and then a little Shin Yi, and then a little Neigong, and then a little song, a little relaxation. In the advanced class, your class, it's going to be the yin and yang cycles, and then a hard look at the Shin Yi. What are you actually doing? What are you trying to accomplish in this move? In all its gory detail. And then a really deep look at the Neigong, what you should be doing with your energy body. And then finally, we're going to go through the silk reeling, which is really sort of the Neigong. It's Neigong squared, all right? Neigong to the second power. Um, and with those 8 levels, you should have a really good foundation in Tai Chi that you can then take into any form that you want to do, because all the forms work on the same principles. There are, as you know, in some of the more advanced um, forms, there are some more athletic moves, and we didn't really get into them, and we're not going to get into them, but they are there, and if you want to pursue them, you can, but they all work on exactly the same principles. Um, the application of those principles may sometimes be a little surprising, but they're always the same principles underneath, basically. Um, we should also include, actually, with this class, we should include a review of the what's called the 8 characteristics. So what are the 8 characteristics of Chen style Tai Chi? So uh, Hei Chung Yun Dong, right? One move Yun Dong. Yun Dong means a purposeful action, a focused action. So Hei Chung means a single movement. So it means you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish with one movement. Boom, that's it. All right. It may look really like a really complex movement, but actually it's just one single movement underneath all the complexity. It's very simple. So I think the place to start is we sort of went over. I think maybe we did all the moves in the first section of the form. Went through and worked out the yin and yang cycles. And I'm a little reluctant to get into that too much without Susan here, because we're just going to have to go over them again. But she's going to try and make it tomorrow. So maybe we should just let's just go over the first move just to kind of get our minds back in that way of thinking about things, and then we'll just do a couple of forms, right? Kevin, how are you doing with your process of moving back toward actually doing the form?
I'm starting to play around with the first move. I did have I met with had my physical at the end of the year, and I asked him about the brace, and he says that's not going to do what you want, because it does, not only does it stop any torquing from happening, but it changes your whole way you move. So I told Annie, over text, that I'm just going to keep playing and just slowly nudging it and see how I can do. That's all I can do.
Yeah. Well, just be really careful with it. Knee problems are serious problems, and you don't want to screw it up so that it gets even worse. So just be really careful with it. Okay, so I've got my Tron outfit on here, and I'll show you why I have the Tron outfit on. This is move number 13. What I want you to watch is this red line here and the white line going down my thigh. Right here. Spiral in, spiral in, spiral out, spiral in, spiral out. Another way of saying it, how Master Zhang probably would have said it, is sink into your right quad. All right. So into this, into what's called the inguinal canal here. Okay? You're sinking into the hip joint, so much so that the red line is just going to disappear. And then when you come out the same way you went in. You go in, you come out. You go in, you come out. But when you come out, you sort of snap it open. And that throws your fist out. So you're not throwing your fist from the shoulder, you're throwing it from the hip. Or actually the bottom of the foot. Yeah, Kevin.
In the last class, when you rotated your body a little bit to show that you went right down your thigh and not out to the side, that was very good from an alignment perspective. So you're not just flinging it out here.
You can hit somewhere other than off this line. But to the degree you're off that line, your strike will be less and less and less efficient, to the point where it doesn't even feel like a strike. It just feels like sort of a tap or something, right? So when you wind up, you could say you're winding up. Watch this white line. You see how that's not really changing? It's because everything's winding into that white line and then winding out again. So your strike winds up that, you could say winds up that white line, and then when you throw the strike, it comes down the white line. It comes down and out. So it's coming, what you should say is it's coming down the thigh, right? But it's a little hard to see. So, but with the white line there, it's coming down that white line. Boom. And what throws it is not your shoulder or your arm, it's your lower body. Okay, so that's why I have my Tron outfit on here. So I think I'm going to take this off again since we're not really going to be working on this particular move. Maybe I'll leave my dantian on. I used to have a roll of big white tape, but I don't know what happened to it. It's disappeared somewhere. Okay, the first move. Let's go back to the traditional first move. And what we're going to be looking for is to establish the yin and yang cycles. This is something that you, in a way, you don't want to have to think about. You want to get past thinking about this, but the only way to get past it is to go through it. So you got to think about it for a while. You got to analyze it, a move, all the moves in the form, until you understand where all the yin and yang cycles are, because that's what establishes the Shin Yi. The yin and yang cycles are just your intention. All right. So to some degree there's a degree of ambiguity in some of them. You may add an intention in, or you may choose to ignore that intention. When you watch folks do the form, if you know the form well, as you watch them do it, you will note, oh, they picked up on that yin and yang cycle, or they really de-emphasized that yin and yang cycle, or they just skipped over it. There isn't any yin and yang cycle there. Any of those are okay. It's like learning to play the concert piano for a concerto. Yeah, the score is there, but every virtuoso who plays it in a different way. They emphasize certain things, they de-emphasize other things, and some other things they may just completely drop. So it's kind of the same thing. Okay, the traditional first move looks like this. That's it. So there is the excuse me. There is the little introduction there, and then there are 3 Li circles: reverse, forward, and reverse. Each of those Li circles is a yin and yang cycle. But the very beginning of the form is also a yin and yang cycle. All right? Watch me do the beginning of the form again. You're doing 3 Qigong circles. All right? Peng, Lu, An, Ji. Peng, Peng, Peng. Yes, this is coming up, but there's also another one going down. All right, and then the third one. Now watch. All the way down to the bottom of the feet. And then it's going to come back up the body from the bottom of the feet to the top of the head. And then it's going to go from the top of the head down to the shoulders, and then down the arms to the tips of the fingers, and down the legs to the tips of the toes. If you're not doing that, you're not doing the form. Yeah, Kevin.
So with that last down movement, are you actually looking at the ground?
Yes.
Oh, and the reason for that, I always thought you had to like look at your opponent so you didn't get kicked in the face or something.
Well, the beginning is really a kind of Qigong meditative kind of thing. So don't forget that what Master Feng would say is this is training, it's not fighting. And the training in Chen style Tai Chi includes a lot of Qigong and a lot of meditation. And Hunyan is like that doubled. So the beginning of the form is meant to get you into the right frame of mind. I've been watching some videos on YouTube of people doing Qigong and whatever. And of course, when you look at them, they're standing in front of a beautiful mountain or Lake Como in Italy. It's gorgeous and birds are singing, but that's not really what it's like. I have never stood in front of a beautiful mountain and done qigong, or in front of a beautiful lake. Right? Um, when we were practicing in the park, we just practiced in the music concourse. In the winter, it was very quiet down there. But once spring and summer started coming in, it was a zoo down there. There were tourists and families and kids and dogs and just, you know, crazy.
Really crappy bands.
What's that?
Really crappy bands.
Yeah, and really crappy bands. Well, the bands fortunately did not show up until lunchtime, and we had quit by then. But early in about when we would show up to start practicing about 8:30 in the morning, it was pretty quiet. And then class started at 9 o'clock. By 10 o'clock, there were a million people down there. And I remember somebody once, uh, Master Jacques said, "Okay, let's do some meditation." You know? And somebody came up and said to him, "Well, why don't we go to a more quiet place?" And he just looked at them and said, "Why? If you can't meditate in a noisy place, then you can't meditate. If you have to have a beautiful mountain and the ocean and Lake Como and birds singing, that's not meditating. That's just going for a spa day somewhere. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but the truth is, for most people, most of the time, your situation may be less than ideal. It's not going to be that ideal that you see on YouTube videos. All right. So the beginning of the form is a little formal moment of qigong and meditation to get you into the right frame of mind. Forget all the craziness around yourself and just create this kind of mental bubble where you can do what it is you want to do without being disturbed. So there are two things here that you need to pay attention to. There are really four movements in this beginning. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to do each of those correctly in order to be doing them. Just doing the outside version of them is really only about 20% of the actual move. 80% of the move is hidden inside. So when you do the first three, There are there are four energies in each of those circles. If you don't pay attention to that, what happens is it just becomes you circling your arms 3 times. That's not the exercise. The Kevin, what is the point of those 3 circles? What's your Shin Yi?
To gather and move your energy
To gather energy from where?
everywhere.
Yes, from the cosmos, right? From the farthest stars to the earth, right? You're gathering the energy of the universe into yourself. And you're going to go through 4 particular phases to do that. First, you're going to expand. You're going to expand until you encompass the entire universe. Then you're going to gather everything. You're going to reach around and gather it. And then you're going to sink it to your dantian. And then you're going to let it percolate out from your dantian out to every part of your body, every cell in your body. Yeah. Yes, good.
So when I first started this, I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
And then after a while, it's like you can actually feel something tangible.
Yes.
Like you're gathering this amorphous ball of something, and I can't get it out again, but I can gather it. And that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. And I'm like, well, this is weird, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that if you can feel it when you gather it, eventually you will be able to feel it when you push it out. The gathering of the energy is pure Qigong. Packaging that energy into little bullets and then boom, being able to shoot those bullets of energy, that's Tai Chi. No, it's also Qigong, but that's really the Tai Chi part of things. So Master Feng used to talk about the single crystal of Hunyan Qi. There's a lot of different aspects to that, but from the martial point of view, the single crystal of Hunyan Qi is gathering all this energy and then cooking it down to a single point and then being able to move that point anywhere you want it. All right? Which is really something you do with your mind. And your body, providing your mind and your body are the same thing. Right? They work together. So those first 3 circles are really important. They are to get you out of day-to-day life and into this practice space, which is kind of a sacred space. So it's like when you walk into the temple. You take your shoes off. You are going into a special space, and you need to acknowledge that in some way. So this is a way of acknowledging that. It's a way of composing yourself to be open to the energies within the temple, and it is itself an act of practice, right? Open, open yourself to the universe. Lu, gather that energy. On, bring it down into the body, specifically into the dantian. Right? And then Qi, let it just percolate out to every part of the body. Remember, the G energy is the energy of contraction. But when you contract things, they get stronger, right? When you are contracting, you've got a mass and you contract that mass into a smaller space, it becomes more energetic. It's the same thing. You gathering the chi in, you contract it, and that's what causes it to expand out to every part of the body. You can feel it. You can feel yourself do it. Rand, does this make sense?
It does.
All right, each one of those cycles, you do it 3 times. You can do it more, you can do it 12 times. Each one of those cycles is a yin and yang cycle. Right? Expand and gather. Right? To me, those are the yang functions. And then sink and contract. Those are the yin functions. Opening and then closing. Yang and yin. And then when you're done with yin, you begin yang again, and then yin, and then yang again, and then yin. So it's just like breathing. And your breathing should be coordinated with that. You shouldn't have to think about it, but it should be coordinated. Right? Breathe in. Breathe in. And now breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. And now, after the third one, you do something different. And the first 3 circles are just a gathering of cosmic chi. So it's like charging your phone. But the 4th thing here is maybe opening the phone, so to speak. So you after the 3rd one, you sink it to the bottom of the dantian and then the bottom of the feet, right? And you're looking at the ground. Why are you looking at the ground? Because where your eyes go, your mind goes, and where your mind goes, your chi goes. So you are helping it. It's not something you want to do when you're practicing to fight someone, unless they're on the ground. Right? But in the form, this is a Qigong function. So you're looking at the ground, and watch, you sink, sink, sink until you feel your inner stuff touch the bottom of your feet and touch the ground. And it can even go into the ground. And then back up the legs, up the spine, up to the top of the head. And then now it's at the top of the head, now relax it down to the shoulders and down the arms to the tips of the fingers, and then down the legs to the tips of the toes. Now your whole body should be charged. It should feel, right? Should feel alive. It should feel like it's tingling a little bit. So it's a very kind of formal beginning. It's just like when you think of when in the Christian tradition they sing they sing hymns in the church. They don't just start singing the hymn. The organ will play a prelude. It may just be a bar or two. It may not be really long, but it's a little Humpty Dumpty Dumpty Dum to get things moving, and then the hymn starts. It's exactly the same thing. When you say a very formal prayer, there's usually a little preamble. There's a little something to get things moving, and that's what this is. All right? If you're doing Buddhist chanting, there's a little preamble before the actual chant starts. So, same thing here. Down all the way, up, and then down again. Now, you would think this is so important. You would think Master Zhang would have said this every time he taught the form. In 20 years I was with him, I heard it once. In the old style of teaching, if you really wanted to get this shit, you had to stick around. Because their style of teaching was just kind of, sometimes I think about it and I say it, and other times I don't think about it. So you may never hear this from me again, but this is really important. Okay. Right? Let's assume you've done that. Okay, now you're standing there. You should be totally relaxed. A little more weight on the right side. Right? But you're ready to go. Right? You could do anything from here. Right? You're ready to go. And so now you go into the first move. Traditionally, the first move looks like this. Right? And that's basically it. In Hunyan, it's a little more complex. Pung. On. And now, Pung. Lu. On. Ji. Right? And again. Pung. Lu. On. Ji. Pung. Lu. On. Ji. So there's really 4 additional yin and yang cycles there. That makes a total of 8 yin and yang cycles in this first little beginning here. This first one, watch, looks like this. If you were really going to use it, it would look like this. Right? Why would you use something like that? Well, suppose somebody grabs you by the wrist. All right? Rand, watch. Suppose this hand is Rand's, and Rand grabs me by the wrist. The first thing I'm going to do is come up into his hand. That movement up is going to cause him, since he's trying to control me, is going to cause him to press down. Right? It's just natural. Sometimes when you do that, it will actually make the guy let go because it's so unexpected. You think about it. You grab somebody's arm. What's the last thing you expect him to do? You don't expect him to come toward you. You expect him to go away. You expect him to try and get away by going backward. But instead, you come forward. It will discombobulate somebody's mind. It will also do something different. You can practice this right now yourself. take your right hand and grab your left wrist. Now bring your left wrist up into your right hand. All right? Now watch. Watch this wrist. All right? Bring the wrist up. Yeah. What happens with your grip on the right? It's weakened. It's much weakened. So you've done with one little movement, you've done two things. You've discombobulated the guy's mind, probably his unconscious, he's not even conscious of it, and you've weakened his grip. All right? One. Now, the next move is, right now, my intention is on the top of the wrist. It's not in the hand. The hand is very loose. All right? Why am I doing the wrist? Because that's where he's grabbing me. If he was grabbing me by the end of the fingers, yeah, you could use the wrist, but it would be better just use the end of the fingers. I want to interact with him in the place that he's touching me. So I'm going to come up like this, and then I'm going to escape. It's easy for me to go down because I can use gravity. All right? Up, down. All right? I'm going to come up into my wrist, and then I'm going to turn my hand down, and I'm going to come down into the palm of my hand. Up in the wrist, down into the palm. All right? And not the part of the palm here or on the underside of the knuckles, the part of the palm right underneath the heel of the hand, right? So I guess you could say that's the bottom of the wrist, right? So the top of the wrist, the bottom of the wrist, the heel of the hand. Right? 9 times out of 10, you will get away from the guy that way. Now, that's only going to give you a second because he's immediately going to do something else. But it's better than standing here letting him control your wrist. Right? So the very first part of the form, right? Yin, yang. Yin, yang. It's such a tiny little move that you don't even see it. But if you're actually practicing this, that's what you're practicing. What's your Dan Chen doing? It's not your wrist doing it like this. It's your Dan Chen doing it. You're creating a wave in the body. It's the whole body doing it. Rand, what's the formula for force?
Mass times acceleration.
So you want to use the entire mass of your body. All right? The whole mass of your body is doing this. It's not your wrist doing it. All right? How do you recruit the whole mass of your body? You move from the center. Move your Dan Chen. All right, when you watch, if you're a judge in a Hunyan Tai Chi conference, let's say, or tournament, you watch a guy, you can tell in the very first movement where he's at. Because you'll either see this or you won't. If you see this, oh, okay. He actually understands what he's doing. He's raising, sinking, goes up, goes back, goes down, goes in. Or it might look like this. It's empty. It's empty. It's just a little outer movement. Then you move on to the next movement is actually the same as the first movement. The first movement is a small reverse circle. The next one is a large reverse circle. They're both, in a sense, basically the same thing, but you can accomplish different things with them, which means your Xinyi is different. This is to deal with someone grabbing your wrists. Boom. Right? This is to deal with somebody who's grabbing your throat. Right? They're like this. Right? They've got you here. So what happens? You know, they've got you here. You come up underneath them, break their hold, and then push them away. But it's exactly the same movement used for a different purpose. Tongue, Lu, on, Qi, Peng, Lu, on, Qi. Right? This is the miniature one. This is the big one. Yeah, Kevin.
Go up to go down, go in to go out.
Yeah.
Malcolm.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I think it's really helpful in these moves to like ignore the wrist, to forget that it's the wrist. Like in the sense that like when you talk about what is your Dan Chen doing here, that's the real question, isn't it? Like the wrist is just like something that you add on. But when you like when I try to think about like what is my center doing, what is my body doing, where is my energy body moving? I feel that it's much deeper than when I'm like, oh, wrist goes up, wrist goes down. It's not like wrist goes up, wrist goes down.
What you're talking about is the Negong, the inner control of the energy. When you talk about the wrist, what you're talking about is the Xinyi. That's kind of the outside of the ball, and the Negong is kind of the inside of the ball. So in a certain way, Ran, you're right, because the Xinyi can change all the time. And this is a perfect example. The Xinyi, the part of the body, the mental intention part of the body is one thing here, it's something completely different here. And yet the Negong is actually the same, basically. But it's also Negong on a spectrum. Is that really small one with the wrist is like over here at the beginning, right? The really big one is down here at the end. They're on the same spectrum. They're really the same thing, but they're in different places on the spectrum. And to use Tai Chi as a martial art, you've got to have both. I think you have to say the idea that they're actually separate from each other is just an artifact of training. The truth is they're not separate from each other. They're actually the same thing. So your Xinyi and your Negong are actually the same thing. All right? there's the head, there's the tail. But they're actually the same thing. Right? They're actually just one coin.
No, go ahead. No, I think that's exactly right. It's just that at least for me, it's much easier to think about the external part. It's like, oh, we're doing hands, we're doing shoulders, we're doing elbows, we're doing wrists. Like the obvious thing is to think about the expression because that's what you can see, and you're like, okay, I'm moving my muscles here, and it requires more attention or more thought, at least for me, to say like, oh, what is this move? Like, what are we trying to do
Actually,
behind this?
yeah. Um, well, thank you for that feedback, Rand, because uh, by collecting the feedback from all you guys as we go along, it will help me just learn how to teach you this stuff. Because all the training, all the forms, all the training is not the point. The point is what you get when you've done the training. All right. But there are. That's why I keep saying, Tai Chi is very easy to do. It's just very hard to learn. Yeah, Kevin.
You can focus on the external, you can focus on the internal, you can focus this here. Well, it's the integration that you're going for at the end where it all comes together, and that's the hard part.
Think about. I don't play the piano, but I like to listen to classical music, classical piano. And you think about the years and years and years of learning and practice that those men and women who really are virtuosi have to go through to accomplish this. Um, and yet, the whole point of it is to leave all that behind. Because when you're playing the piano for 1,000 people in a theater, you've got to go beyond your own training. You've got to go to this other place where something really magical sort of happens. And it's exactly what you say, Kevin, where all the technical things you've learned and all those things are. It's not just that they're at your fingertips; they are your fingertips. And so you can play in that way that is really extraordinary and is very rare actually. So we're in the training period. And Ran, I hear you with what you say. I'll try to include more Negong, more talking about what happens in the Dan Chen. Flipping it over backwards and then down. Flip it over backwards again and then out. Now flip it forward and pull down. And now flip it backwards and press down. Right? In a certain way, it's the simplest thing in the world. But if you don't understand all those bits and pieces in there, you may be doing something that kind of looks like Tai Chi on the outside, but it's not. It's not Tai Chi. All right, guys, we're a little bit over time, but it was good to get that to get the first day of the new year in. Hopefully, Susan will feel better tomorrow, and we can finish up this move and move on to the next move. Right. So we'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.